Thanks for tuning in to the Women's Vibrancy Code, a podcast dedicated to helping women move from exhausted to energized, balance their hormones, and feeling turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. I'm your host, Maraya Brown. I'm a Yale and functional medicine trained women's health expert, midwife, mom, keynote speaker, and self-made entrepreneur. I'm the founder of my signature program, the Women's Vibrancy Code. So sit back, relax, and let's chat about your energy, hormones, libido, and embracing your feminine power. Oh, and you might want to have pen and paper to take some notes on some of these episodes. For those of you listening to the Women's Vibrancy Code podcast, in whatever place you are listening, Maraya Brown here, Yale and functional medicine trained women's health expert. I have a treat for you today. I am here with John Gray, who is the author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Bow, mic drop moment. John, when did it come out?
1992. I wrote it in 1990.
Okay. I think I read it for my first time in the late 90s. I think I was in my early 20s or late teens. And it was striking.
Yeah. It was revolutionary for everybody.
Yeah. So for those of you who maybe haven't heard of it because you've been living in a cave, USA Today listed his book as one of the top 10 most influential books of the last quarter century. In hardcover, it was the #1 best-selling book of the 1990s. Dr. Gray's books are translated into approximately 45 languages in more than 100 countries and continues to be a bestseller. But also, Dr. Gray has written over 20 books, so that he is more than just Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. His most recent book is Beyond Mars and Venus, Relationship Skills for Our Complex Modern World. Sounds like we're going to be digging in a bit to that. And his Mars-Venus book series has forever changed the way men and women view their relationships. John helps men and women better understand and respect their differences in both personal and professional relationships. His approach combines specific communication techniques with healthy, nutritional choices that create the brain and body chemistry for lasting health, happiness, and romance. Of course, I have some questions around that. I didn't realize you also delve into nutrition. And he has appeared repeatedly on Oprah, as well as the Dr. Oz Show, Today, CBS, This Morning, Good Morning America, and others. He's been profiled in Time, Forbes, USA Today, and People. He was also the subject of a 3-hour special hosted by Barbara Walters, and he lives in Northern California, where for 34 years he happily shared his life with his beautiful wife, Bonnie, until her passing in 2018. John, I'm sorry for your loss. And they have 3 grown daughters and 4 grandchildren, and he's an avid follower of his own health and relationship advice. Anything else you would add to that?
No, that's plenty.
How is it to sit and listen to someone else read your bio?
I kind of feel like we should shorten it. I have a shorter version because it gives me less time to talk.
Okay. All right.
It feels good. Of course, it feels good.
Yes.
You know, I sit with many of my books behind me, kind of like my other children. You know, I have 5 grandchildren, 3 daughters, but these are also like family for me too.
And we'll have about 45 minutes for this episode, but let's say we did only have 5 minutes together. And that bio was shortened down to 30 seconds.
Yep.
I'm curious if there is one punchline in the end that is like, if the listeners heard one thing today, do you have any thoughts on what that one thing might be?
Sure. The biggest challenge today in relationships is that we have now more freedom. And the freedom is for women to be more masculine, for men to be more feminine. And it's kind of like you're walking a tightrope. and you're balancing the male qualities, your female qualities. We all have them. And once you tip over to your male side, you tend to fall over very easily. If you fall over on your female side, not such a bad thing if you're a woman. If you're a man and you fall over onto your female side, the things that allow men to go to their female side are addictions, not a good thing. When women go too far to their male side, they also have addictions. So what would those be? That's we'll explore that. But the problem is it's what happened to women today, which is they're all independent and it's hard to come back to many of the qualities of their femininity. So I help women to realize, why do you need a man? If you don't need a man for money, that's because you're on your male side, you can make plenty of money. Then the qualities that allow you to make money generate male hormones. And so how to use a man to bring you back to your female side, it's a whole new form of communication that I talk about that isn't the focal point, and men are from Mars. And that's beyond Mars and Venus. What to do when women are more like men and men are more like women. At least, I mean, we're still men, women are still women. But if you look at what their hormones are, is if a woman is ever stressed, producing stress hormones, her body's making too many male hormones, not enough female hormones. And that's biologically true. And whenever a man is stressed, he's in fight or flight, he will be producing too much estrogen and not enough testosterone. So wouldn't it be great if we just open our minds to a whole new way to communicate about men and women and our roles that we play in a marriage that can stimulate the right hormones so that you can experience a lifetime of love and attraction with your partner.
And yes, I love, so this is pertaining predominantly to heterosexual partnerships. And I imagine working relationships, intimate relationships in the world, not just, or are we talking really like intimate marriage relationships?
What I was just talking about was one of the crises as women are making more money. It's having a big effect on relationships. So that's one area I can go to. If you want to look at workplace, I've written a whole book called Mars and Venus in a Workplace. I've written another book called Work With Me that I wrote with a feminist, just to sort of balance my message out so that she was happy as well, talking about the ways men and women don't understand each other in the workplace. That would take a whole different direction in terms of exploring the solutions there. So as per your request, I'm focusing on heterosexual relationships and keeping passion alive, because the answers again are different. If you're single or you're in a gay relationship and whatever, that's a somewhat of a different significance. You know, I'll just say briefly, you know, gay women kind of already have an understanding of each other. Gay men already have an understanding of each other. Whereas heterosexual couples, you're not biologically understanding the other person. I mean, literally, men don't have a clue what women need. Women don't have a clue what men need. They think they're doing everything right, and then their relationships don't work, and they just think it's all the man, as opposed to, I can point out to any woman who's unhappy in a relationship 10 things she's doing wrong that she didn't even know she was doing wrong. And you know, I don't focus on wrong, but it doesn't work.
Yeah. So for myself, the female breadwinner in a home, in a heterosexual marriage for now 18 years, a roller coaster of at times happy as can be, other times not so much. And I'll tell you, we brought him home July of 2021. It made sense logistically and logically for the family dynamic. But boy, did it negatively impact the relationship dynamics, if you ask me. So for the woman who's listening to this, that is an ambitious woman, possibly the breadwinner, possibly C-suite, strong entrepreneur, CEO, and she's feeling tension in her marriage, nitpicking, not feeling as turned on by her husband, and maybe, just maybe, there's an imbalance in what I'm hearing, this masculine-feminine balance. Where would you start?
Yeah, we'll just start. If you're not turned on your husband, there's a huge imbalance. That's the most important thing. When it comes to, you know, women, 50 years, women, I talk to them all, they have all these complaints about he's not attentive, he's not affectionate, he's not understanding, he doesn't help out, he's not supportive in a variety of different ways. I don't feel his being present with me. All those things are basically ways that if a man understood the easy ways to fulfill all those needs, they would have a better relationship. those behaviors that would help her feel cared for, prioritized, understood, providing empathy, respect, all these kind of things, primarily that kind of support that she's missing when she complains to her therapist, are behaviors a man can do that will raise a woman's estrogen levels. Women need to make 10 times more estrogen than men. When a woman's making money, she's not making estrogen. She's making testosterone.
It's so ironic. Wait, I was sorry, I'm interrupting because it's so ironic how many women I'm seeing coming to me and they've gone to a provider and they've gotten a testosterone pellet or they're injecting themselves with testosterone.
Yeah, their testosterone levels. Okay, so now you're talking over 40. What's going on there is when a woman's estrogen levels aren't being stimulated in her body, then she doesn't naturally make testosterone. There's two ways a woman's body makes testosterone. One is a lot of foreplay. A woman, like making love, the whole point of foreplay is you're raising her estrogen. It's focused on her. Estrogen goes up when you feel you're dependent on something or someone in a significant way. So certainly if you're taking your clothes off, you're depending on a man not to be judgmental. You're depending on a man to adore you and love you. You're dependent on a man to be prioritizing you, not looking at his phone, etc. So this is when a woman can feel safe. I depend on you for safety, for behaviors that demonstrate caring and priority, which is why monogamy is so important. Commitment is so important. If you don't have that, estrogen levels go down in a woman. But when a woman, if you look biologically, when estrogen levels go to a high level, then naturally her body starts making testosterone. It's a balance. So the body balances, which is enough foreplay and a woman, her testosterone will start to be stimulated and then she'll desire sex. So the idea is married couples can walk around. I used to ask my wife, do you want to have sex? She says, not really, not really. And all I did is I finally learned, let's just go cuddle in bed and see what happens and kiss her and love her and have a conversation with her. And suddenly she wants to have sex. Why does change? Because when estrogen goes high, naturally women, there's a balance, your female side, then your male side, and ultimately making love is a balance of both. That's why it feels so good, is you have a balance of both. So there's another way, a context in which women make testosterone and then can run out of testosterone because their body is stressed and she can't make, your adrenal glands aren't making your testosterone when your adrenal glands are stressed. And so, but you will burn out making too much testosterone and not enough estrogen. And why would you make testosterone if you're stressed? Because think of what makes a woman feel stressed is I don't feel safe. I don't have support. I have to do it myself. So this is a thing which happens in marriage after a woman doesn't, she doesn't know how to ask for help from men in a way that works. So then she starts complaining and then that really doesn't work. So then she feels, why bother? I'll just do it myself. So that whole feeling, I'll do it myself because I can't get what I need. That's another form of testosterone that comes from stress. So when you have financial difficulties, again, but I can't depend on the man to support me financially. It makes sense. It's logical sense. She can make more money, and so many women do now. She's now making money primarily because without her making money, she would not be able to get the support she needs. So it's a have to. So anytime you're making testosterone, you're doing what you have to do. Then when you're on your male side a lot as women, you take on male characteristics, but always when you're on your male side and your female side is not being nurtured, you're in a stress state. So one big study of hundreds of thousands of women in the workplace found that compared to men, on average, these are averages, women's stress levels are twice as high as men's. And when they return home, they double again. This was just the average. And now there could be exceptions for that, of course. But why would that be? Well, some people would feel, well, the workplace is against women. And ironically, that's how it used to be. It wasn't really against women. It was built for men because it's an environment which is not personal. It's not personal. It's achieving a goal. You put your own needs behind you and you're satisfied by being of service to others. And you get paid for that. And if you don't get paid, then don't do that job. So that's the workplace. It's impersonal to a greater extent. And you make decisions which are always somewhat of a risk risk and danger, risk and danger. And the solution to that risk and danger is doing it yourself, independence, being a leader. So leadership, earning money, taking risks, all of that is really supportive to man's biology, not as supportive to woman's biology. This is just biology. Don't blame me. So,
Right. There's a few things. One of the quotes that I use often is, or I'll ask a woman, is it that you're not turned on, or is it that you're not turned on by what's being offered to you? So I love your example, and I can't tell you how many women will say this to me. My husband just comes up and says, "Do you want to have sex?" No, I don't want to have sex. Gives me a foot rub, sends me flowers, listens, and I end up feeling really heard and seen and connected. And now I'm feeling a longing and leaning in. And I love that you're bringing in the science there. The second thing is regarding the stress response. Are you speaking of DHEA in the context of testosterone increase, or
I wasn't talking about that at that point. DHEA is DHEA when you're the reason women go through so many troubled hormonal problems, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, it's all around adrenal burnout. And then you're going to have not enough DHEA. So sometimes people get great benefit by taking hormones. There's also some people who don't. Before taking any hormones, somebody has to do a reflection of what am I doing in my life that's keeping my hormones from being produced? If you're in a state of chronic stress, which so many women are, and one of the symptoms of that is just feeling overwhelmed.
yeah,
When you feel overwhelmed, you're basically too far on your male side. You see, your male side says, I have to do things. Whenever you feel I have to do something, you're producing testosterone and not so much estrogen at all. Estrogen is when I have others to do things for me. I don't have to do it. I have others who do things for me as a predominant kind of feeling. So if you look traditionally, if you go down to when I was living with Ashwar Indians in the Amazon, every night they have sex. Okay, so they have a very clear women's life, men's life. Men do dirty, dangerous, difficult. They go into the jungle, they die, they get snake bites, it's uncomfortable. They never complain. They come back. The women are gardening. They're raising children. They're all together. They feel supported all the time. They're doing what they love to do. So it was like somebody decided a long time ago, okay, how do we keep the women happy? And the women said, this is what we like. So the men said, okay, we'll do everything you don't like. And that's what men have always done. We do what women don't want to do, what women don't like to do. And the culture was such that the culture had the wisdom, which following what women like to do and what they needed from men, they set it up that way. I don't know who set it up that way, but it's natural biology tells us that because you feel good when you're not having to feel stressed. I can drive my car fast and my testosterone goes up, and testosterone, I need to make 10 times more testosterone than my wife, okay, just to feel good. Then I need to double it to be turned on to my wife. Okay, so this is turned on in a way where it's not just coming from sex addiction, but it's coming from loving her and being turned on to her. See, there's something happens. Nobody understands this yet. I have to write a whole book on it, but there's a new word coming out now. I've been talking about it for 20 years, but it's finally coming out. The research is backing it up. Is when a man has sex with his wife, he's committed to, have to be commitment. So you're married and you're committed, you've made the deal, and at least you started out feeling that way, and then you have problems, but you recommit yourself, and you have problems, you recommit yourself. That's masculinity. You don't give up. Okay, so when a man has commitment, what happens is he stays married. Research shows that couples who stay married live longer than couples who don't, or all individuals. So no matter what gender you are, whatever, heterosexual men and women who stay married live longer than all the other categories of people. And they also have less sickness and disease, less dementia. Wow. Yes, that's already proven. Okay, that's a yay for marriage, even if you don't like it. You stay in it, okay? Because people say to me, they say, well, that must be the good marriages. I go, no, it's the people who stay in a marriage. Commitment. is like so key, because when a man who's committed to a woman, this is now tested biologically, when a man's committed to his partner and he has sex with her, he will produce a hormone called prolactin. Prolactin in a man inhibits his desire to have sex with other people. So it's very easy. I can't even be turned on to another woman. I'm so turned on to my wife. But also prolactin inhibits your sexual desire to your own partner. It just negates a man's sexual desire because he's in that committed relationship. But if the committed relationship is such that my role in some meaningful way to her is a provider, and her role in some meaningful way to me is depending on me, so that she has a lot of appreciation for what I provide, so that she accepts me just the way I am, so she can depend on me and ask for help in meaningful ways. That stimulates testosterone in me. And if I respond to her requests for help, if I take the time to listen to her, if I give her the foot rubs, if I understand her needs to come back to her female side after a day at work, which are much greater than women in history have ever had. See, in history, women haven't had all this responsibility of the material world of making money. And when they do have that, they're making testosterone and not estrogen. The good news is that if a woman anticipates getting surges of estrogen at home, even while she's at work, she will have less stress. She'll be making estrogen. Thinking, it's like if I was to say to you next week, we're going to go to Hawaii, you'd already be looking for your outfits. So you're going to be thinking ahead for it. You're planning.
I was planning the hike to the waterfall is what I was doing.
Yeah. But when you're thinking about that, anticipating, already your body will be making estrogen. Just like for me, to anticipate making money, I'll travel to another country. They pay a lot of money when I go out of this country. Just the anticipation of it makes the trip so smooth. But if somebody said, we want you to fly to China to give a talk to 30 people, I'm not going to do that. But when they say, I'll fly to China and give a talk to 30 people for $200,000, I'm happy to go. The anticipation of success raises, for both men and women, testosterone, but not estrogen.
Well, and on the flip side, when we're talking about stress, my understanding is stress physiologically can be real, imagined, or anticipated. So on the flip side, we can, in the same way, create the opposite of the healthy hormonal response by anticipating or thinking about or worrying about things that cause stress. Yes?
Oh, absolutely. And that's part of women's addictions. The main addiction men have is sexual addiction. Porn is now so available. And they, you look at a teenager, young 20, in the 20s, they do these studies, because that's, they have all these young people to do studies on. And they mark down various ways they can schedule how often a man thinks about sex. And it's every minute, according to the studies. So it would be looking at a girl's legs. It would be looking at somebody's holding hands with a girl. It would be looking at a guy driving a car that's going to attract women. But it's in the context of how do you get laid. This is major factor. Now, it's a little bit less now, possibly, but maybe not. What I'm hearing now is that guys are doing porn 3 times a day. And what that then does is continuously lowers their testosterone levels. It's an estrogen producer. Anytime a man is dependent on someone to feel good, his estrogen goes up. And certainly porn makes him not only get a surge of testosterone that crashes, but also makes him feel really good. Anything that feels really good raises estrogen. So, but when you feel really good making love to your wife, because it makes prolactin, because you're in a committed relationship, if you're masturbating, you don't make prolactin. You just feel more addicted to sex. And also you're drained of testosterone. Worse if you're doing porn, and not as bad as if you actually went to a prostitute or had a one-night stand, but none of them make prolactin. So males are addicted to that. Women are addicted to overwhelm and complaining, feeling not enough, not enough, not enough, not enough. Not enough is always going to produce dopamine. Sex always produces dopamine. So what you get is that dopamine shot every time you're worrying, every time you're feeling not enough. He's not doing this enough. He's not doing this enough. And not enough money, not enough time, not enough support, not enough intimacy. And it can be confusing too, because I mean, there was a stage, I was married to Bonnie for 34 years, very happy marriage, but we had all these problems in the beginning that Men from Mars helped solve. But there was a point where, the first few years, we're doing really well. My books are selling, everything. And even before the books were selling, I was a good counseling practice and so forth. And I said to her, honey, why aren't you happy? I don't understand. And she said, John, I'm so happy with everything in my life. Our children, we have a house, we have insurance, we have my friends, I have my garden. I mean, I have everything. It's just you. So that was easy for me to fix. Okay. It was understanding psychology. Psychology is such that when you have stress building up in your life outside the home, you will tend to project that onto your partner when you get home. So it's like if you had 15 wonderful things happen to you today, you come home and you have no issues with your husband at all. But if you had a little frustration here and a little frustration there, a disappointment here, you forgot this, somebody let you down, one kid's sick. See, all of that is accumulation of stress. And that's what women do primarily. Men do not. It's not nearly as much for men as it is for women. Unless a man's on his female side, it will affect him. But for women, they have estrogen. Estrogen produces all your emotions. So when you have stress, adrenaline even, women will have 7 times more blood flow than a man to the emotional part of the brain, just under moderate stress. But women are designed, if you can talk about that stress, if you talk of what's bothering them, that will produce estrogen. Okay, so that's just a big estrogen producer, which is why complaining can be so soothing for women. It doesn't always answer anything, though. It just gives you a burst of estrogen. It's like porn makes a man feel like king, and then he loses it. Women will go to their therapist and they can complain. That's one form of therapy. Just talk about problems, understand your problems, have somebody be compassionate to you. That's great. Your estrogen goes up, but afterwards it goes right back down, because you're not solving anything in your life to make sure that you can look forward to it, except with your therapist. You want to be able to look forward to it with your husband and other areas of your life. And what my complaint about therapists is they just have this one kind of thinking, which is we're just going to explore feelings and listen to you and you're going to feel better, as opposed to pointing out to you everything you're doing wrong. And then how you can get your husband to do the right stuff. It's simply like foot massages. Every time I watch TV, my wife puts her feet in my lap and I start massaging them for 10 minutes. That's it. We're done. It's a simple thing, but men has to be told. When I drive the car, for example, I drive when she's in the car in a way that makes her feel very safe and considered. I drive very fast. If she's in a hurry, she loves that I drive fast. So I tend to be driving faster than her comfort zone. She's in the front seat. She's powerless. That's a perfect time for foreplay, for me to do something that says, I'm here for you at a time of danger. Whereas a man drives in a way that makes a woman feel uncomfortable, once again, she's in danger. She's just going to feel stress, as opposed to a woman being in slight danger and a man protecting her. So what we do
fascinating.
I have so many biohacks that raise her estrogen. Get her in the front seat, go for a drive, and tell her anytime I'm driving too fast or uncomfortable, just hold the handle. Don't speak. Just hold the handle, and I immediately slow down. And I put my hand on her, very friendly, no grumpiness, no feeling controlled, because I'm doing this because I know, one, it's what she needs. I understand why she needs it. But two, is I understand there's a big benefit. This is foreplay to great sex. My wife, my wife thinks, my previous wife, my wife now is, you're just the most generous man ever. I said, look, I am generous, but keep in mind, I'm very selfish. I do this stuff because I know it's going to make my wife happy. No man wants an unhappy wife. He just doesn't know how to provide the kind of support women need today. See, he just has to be explained. Once they understand it, it's the women who resist this stuff, okay? It's not the men. Once they understand it, I see all women have, so many things. Well, I can do it myself. I don't need to have him do it for me. And then I said, well, just start learning how to ask. Well, he said no before. I'm not going to say ask again. Or he didn't respond the perfect way. Well, it's like throwing a basketball into a hoop. You're going to miss sometimes. You got to practice this stuff. But within weeks, I get huge turnaround with couples getting great benefit. It doesn't mean all their problems go away. There's so many levels to understanding if a conflict comes up. How do you solve that in a Mars-Venus way? How do you solve that? Mars talks are where you're solving a problem. Venus talks is where the man only listens and the woman talks a lot more than him, and all he says is ask questions. When we start having these arguments, as soon as a man gets started annoyed, irritated, and particularly if he's a successful man, and my wife complains, you left a glass in the sink, or your shoes are on the ground, or the electric bill's too high, how dare you talk to me about that? I just made $50,000. That's the ego talking, but that's what's going to happen unless a man understands women need to talk. Okay. So if they talk, then all those complaints they have will go away. And this is but once you get into it, she'll say, why did you do that? And he always will explain himself. And then she'll say, not a good reason. And then he'll tell her she shouldn't be upset about it. It's not a problem. Think of the bright side. All these things we do to try to change how women feel. When women have the ability to change their feelings all by themselves from a negative complaining person to a positive, loving woman with no resentment. It all happens. She has the ability to do it, just as men have the ability to become back to the guy that he was in the beginning. He's still there. You just have to understand how you do this. And part of it all comes back to gender intelligence. We need a whole new workup on what does it mean to be feminine? How can you get a man to motivate him to do things for you, to open your heart, to open your female feelings? You mentioned a few of those things. Men don't know that. So you have to ask, and women will think, oh, he should just do it automatically. Well, he would do it automatically if he was a lesbian, but he's not. He's a man. The rules that make us successful are very different from what works in a relationship.
What is it, Allison? I think Allison Armstrong says that women just see men as hairy women. It's all we know coming from a female brain. So what I'm hearing is,
I hope you'll never see me as a hairy woman. Okay. It's a terrible example from my point of view.
What I'm hearing is we live in a day and age where women are out working and running households, juggling lots of balls, and stressed too much to the point that they're now overproducing testosterone and underproducing estrogen. So now they don't feel heard and seen and nurtured. And so they go back into more doing, which is causing more stress.
Yeah.
And they actually need 10 times more estrogen. And most men, I'm not hearing this from you, but I'm curious. It seems to me that I'm seeing more men feeling a little bit lost or confused in the context of this, where now women might be coming home, so to speak, emasculating their male partners, putting the stress out on them, not feeling heard. And the men go right into, well, let me fix this. And I don't really know what I'm supposed to do here. And how do I know what's up and down? I'm curious if you're seeing any of that.
Well, of course, that's everything I'm talking about. I don't use for me personally, I don't use the phrase that women in the workplace come home and emasculate their men, because it kind of implies that they're consciously doing that. They're not consciously doing that. They're the ones who are lost, and the men are lost. We're all lost and wandering in the wrong direction in relationships. Women, here's another example where sometimes I explain that if a man's upset, he should not utter a word, okay? Because what happens when a man's experiencing any negative emotion, his estrogen's too high. And the number one thing that raises estrogen is talking. So if he starts to talk, it's only going to get worse. And what do women do is if they're upset and they can talk, it will raise estrogen. If you can not interrupt or get upset at her, her estrogen will go up. And then suddenly what was a big deal is now a little deal. Okay. The whole escalation just goes away, but men don't know that. Men have no idea about it, and women don't know. When a man is upset, do not ask him, what are you feeling? Do not ask him a question. You could say, well, why, he's late for dinner, and so you're upset with him. Why were you late? Okay, well, I was counseling somebody, and so as soon as I realized the time, I rushed home. Said, well, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you do this? Already I'm feeling attacked, even though she's upset. I get it. But now she's giving this sort of disapproval, not looking at me, you should do differently. So now I'm going to react defensively, and now she's going to try to get me into a conversation where you should try to remember. Well, I did remember afterwards. I did my best, It's very hard for him to maintain a grounded, centered approach unless he's good at it. I'm good at it now, but I knew how to get good at it by realizing I'm not going to talk any defense. I'm not going to explain myself. I'm going to give a short answer. Why were you late? Well, there was a lot of, I just forgot. Well, you should remember. Why can't you remember? I would humorously say, well, remember that talk we went to with John Gray? He reminded us all that the memory part of the brain is half the size of for a woman. And men often complain, why does my wife remember everything? And women complain, why does my husband forget? There's just basic differences between men and women. Men tend to remember the things that are most important to make money. So, my kids go, Dad, I can list out every supplement on the planet. I used to have a health food store for 10 years. I had a wellness center. About 25 years ago, when I turned 50, I had Parkinson's. So that's when I went into alternative health and healing and learned everything, healed that for me, had a health food store. I had experts come into my wellness center. And then I moved back to what I'm doing now. I think the greatest medicine, I still think supplements and health is really important. The greatest medicine is love. And it's having a loving, sexual, romantic, enlightened sexuality. I hesitate to always say sex because sex just drains people of life force unless it's enlightened. Enlightened sexuality means you're not having sex for pleasure. You're not getting gadgets and gizmos and all kinds of, some people use porn, some people use fantasy, some people use gizmos and vibrators and plugs and all this stuff. That is just so the wrong direction, is that you want to use your partner. You want to use your partner to stimulate pleasure in the body, which then helps us to feel more, particularly for men. Women can't comprehend this because you have way more estrogen than men. Men don't have that estrogen. And so what happens is through sex is so pleasurable, we begin to feel more. And when you're feeling more, then you focus your attention on feeling the love you have for your partner and expressing it at that time. And as he can feel his love more, that automatically raises her estrogen more to where she starts becoming more vulnerable. And then to go higher levels, she must go to a deeper level of expressing that vulnerability. And why is it that couples have such great making love in the beginning of a relationship? Because women are very vulnerable then. What is a woman thinking at that time? Does he like me? Does he want to get to know me? Is he happy to be with me? And then you start, does he want to be committed to me? And then you get married. Is he happy to marry me? Will he always be faithful to me? Does he think I'm beautiful? Is he glad to be with me? These are all the kind of things that women feel in the beginning. Then they go numb. They go numb to that. And they certainly wouldn't express it, but it's going on all the time when you get naked. When you get naked, always going to be, do I look beautiful to him? Is he attracted to me? And so you have that conversation again and again and again. It's a biohack.
I really appreciate everything that you're sharing here. And also the side comment of Parkinson's that sounds like it's cured. I mean, we could do a whole nother episode just on that.
Yeah. I was doing it for a long time. And now I'll just say right now, I don't do counseling and coaching on Parkinson's. It's a big deal. But one doctor has done peer-reviewed studies showing something very similar to what I recommend to many people who got better. Was Dr. Hinz, Hinz, who only recommends supplements and changing according to as your symptoms change. So you have to work with a doctor because too much dopamine shuts you down, not enough shuts you down. You have to keep regulating according to symptoms. I don't have the time to do that anymore for people. But he has a study, a protocol at Hinz. You do Parkinson's, and then after about 10 years of great success with over 300 doctors doing it, then they went back and they canceled his study, saying redacted, because he also sells the supplements. He sells the supplements because people said, how do we get these supplements? So of course that becomes something he'll do. But the studies work. I've seen it work. It's fantastic. Having said that, I do a lot of things. My thing now is how you want to make sure that you balance your hormones. And the number one supplements I recommend for that, it doesn't take long, is lose your belly fat. Losing your belly fat is the
Ooh, that can be a very triggering statement for many women who feel like they're doing everything, particularly a woman in her 40s and 50s where adrenals are shifting, estrogen is shifting, often the belly weight comes on.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you
So,
get rid of the belly fat?
right, so what comes first, the chicken or the egg? So it's the excess
No,
stress
no.
that's
At any point, you can get rid of belly fat in a month.
how?
Dr. Arciero discovered this. It's amazing. I tell everybody about it. Is that you increase your protein, you double the amount of protein people eat,
Yep.
basically. So doubling, you still have your meals. You start your day with about 35 grams of whey protein with a special mixture with enzymes in it. You have to have enzymes. And you put 100-degree water, you put in your protein with the enzymes, and you incubate it for 45 minutes. It cooks it. Once you've cooked it, you now increase the availability of the amino acids. If you just had a protein shake or a steak or eggs, you're basically only going to get at most 20% of the amino acids. The rest is toxic that your kidneys have to eliminate. If you incubate it, you get 90 to 95% of the amino acids with no toxicity except for a tiny bit that your kidneys have to eliminate. That's why you can't eat a lot of protein. It's hard for your kidneys. But if you end up just having a lot of protein, concentrated protein, until you get your belly fat gone, in a month, you'll lose 20 pounds. This is everybody. He's got this study showing it's a miracle. Everybody talks about diets because you're only going to gain weight over time if you do diets. Do the extreme diets like Oprah. Remember, she did this diet. She just starved herself. She became skinny, then she blew up. Her metabolism is ruined. I was doing intermittent fasting for a long time. I mean, I can go for the whole day. I was really proud of myself. I'm not hungry at all. I'm working. I just have meal, and it kept me basically in the beginning quite ideal. Then over time, it started creeping in, the belly fat, until I had 2 inches more than what I have now. 2 inches around your belly is not good. And in 1 month, gone. Okay, even 2.5 inches. Wow. It was like a miracle. Don't decrease the calories. If you decrease calories, your metabolism slows down. Everybody knows that. But how do you lose weight? You have to eat a lot of protein. And while you're eating that protein, you're not going to gorge yourself on junk food. That's also important. So you have within the first hour of getting up, you have to activate your system with 35 grams of protein, incubated protein. Then you wait a couple hours and you take a snack, some protein snack. It could be bone soup or some kind of good protein, bone broth. That's what I meant to say, or some jerky, whatever. Then what you go into is lunch, and then you have some bone broth in the afternoon. So you're constantly feeding your body protein. Then you have your dinner. Then an hour before bed, which you're never supposed to eat before bed, but full 35 grams of protein again. What I did to lose weight so quickly, to lose my belly fat so much, and the research shows, even without exercise, although I do walk every day, but I was walking every day and I still had my belly fat. But even without exercise, in his study, which is peer reviewed, 3 different studies, you build muscle mass and you burn fat. Okay, now
Fascinating.
it's very fascinating.
So it's really, well, oh my, we could go into, wait, before we go there, because I really think it needs to have its own episode. I heard you list many things that a woman will be excited about early on in a relationship. And then I heard you say, and then she goes numb.
Yes.
I'm curious, in the same context, what would be the example of a man in the same space early on in a relationship? Where is he, and what does he go numb to?
Oh, he's always numb. See,
He's always numb. Okay.
That women have. The only time men have emotions is generally if they're having sex, or a woman's loving him, or he's angry, or he's afraid, or he's anxious. Or see, when men have emotions, they're usually negative, or they're romantic, or they're his team. There is something called excitement and thrill. Yay, I won my team. His testosterone goes so high when his team wins, or when I just got a big check. Then I'll feel really, really happy, because when a man's testosterone goes really high, then his estrogen will follow. But if his estrogen goes up and his testosterone is not high, he'll feel negative emotions. So I want my wife for me every day, and particularly when we're in bed and we're making love. At a certain point, we do a lot of that. Whereas, if think about all the romantic stories throughout time. It was a woman who needed help, and a man overcame adversity,
On the white horse.
comfort. What's that?
On the white horse.
Yes, he's on the white horse, or not the white horse. He is her hero. She's a woman in a vulnerable situation. Like I'm just saying, one of my biohacks is when a woman's driving in a car, her life's in danger, whether we know it or not. Subconsciously, we sort of deny the fact that we could die any minute. So having a man drive in a way that's considerate of you, and then when she pulls her hand down, sometimes I'll drive a little extra fast just so she'll pull the hand down and see my quick response, where immediately with a smile, I will put my hand on her thigh and say, and I did that for you. And she'll say to me, yes, and I appreciate it. Right. See, this is little things make a huge difference for a woman if she's not stressed. If she's stressed, you can do all little things and it's nothing, but you can start them and gradually it will build up because she'll start to anticipate the little things. But once a woman's experiencing the kind of norm of 10 times more estrogen than a man,
then
anything you do, any extra little thing you do, it's gravy. But
we have women that are too stressed out. We have men that are addicted to porn and injecting themselves with testosterone, and now in America, most couples aren't having sex at all.
Right.
So where do they start?
I'm 73 years old, having it all the time.
That's awesome. Without Viagra, I'm assuming.
No Viagra at all. No Viagra at all. Oh my God, I never had Viagra.
So where do they start? Good.
Every day.
For the women and men that are listening to this, where do they begin? Which of your books? Where do they begin? Where do they begin in their relationship? Where do they begin in personal responsibility? Where do they begin in lifestyle? Where do they begin?
Okay. This is what we're talking about today. Beyond Mars and Venus is a variety of biological hacks. We're using the word biohacks because, we're taking all these solutions, supplements and everything. I used to have, I had a whole health food store, 40 products I was taking every day.
Well, and it trends in SEO optimization too.
Okay, yes, it does. Okay. So
I'm
not against it. I mean, it's really great unless you're having great sex quite regularly. Great sex is the immortal thing. And if you're in a monogamous sexual relationship, because you're not addicted to sex, you've got so much prolactin that the only time you think about sex as a man or a woman is when you're close in an intimate moment, when you get into bed. We never even feel like having sex when we go to bed. We get into bed and suddenly it's like two polarities, a magnet. I'm a positive polarity, she's a negative polarity, and you bring them close, that's where you feel the click. Mm-hmm. When a man's addicted to sex, he's feeling horny all the time. He's feeling, the freedom from sex, So where do they start? The question was, so a series of books. This is the one, Beyond Mars and Venus, is understanding a woman's hormones, her cycles, premenopausal, menopausal, afterwards. What are the time hacks you have if you're still cycling? What time of the month do you need to be having sex for sure? What time of the month do you want romance? What time of the month do you need more progesterone than estrogen? Progesterone is produced when you're doing what you like to do. Two types of progesterone stimulation. If you're an extrovert, it's social bonding. If you're an introvert, it's me time where you're doing nurturing things for yourself. So you got to identify yourself. You have to know that's always going to be, a good 10 days before your period. If you're not amping up your progesterone, you'll be depressed and you have PMS. It's a complicated system. It took me years to figure this thing out and map it out.
I'm so glad that I'm so agree, because I kept thinking we're not talking about progesterone, but I don't think there's time. I'm so glad that you're bringing this up.
Well, it's also because it's confusing, because I'm over here talking about estrogen, how important it is, but there's this thing called estrogen dominance, which is terrible. But that's after you ovulate. Then as you're moving towards your period, your progesterone has to go up. You still need to have estrogen. But if you're making too much testosterone, making testosterone uses up progesterone. Progesterone is the precursor to testosterone. So if you're like busy doing stress, you're not going to have any progesterone. So that's where you have to balance and have me time to build your progesterone up and work that into your schedule. And then at the other time of the month, when you're going towards ovulation, it's more about making sure there's key times where you're depending on your partner for something significant that will raise your estrogen. One of the biggest lessons to learn, a whole chapter in here, is on how to communicate your thoughts and feelings to a man in a way that he'll listen. And the way you do that is you do it using emotions, as opposed to there was so much traffic on the bridge, I couldn't get there on time. Well, that means nothing to a man. But there was so much traffic on the minute. I was so frustrated and I was scared I wasn't going to get there on time. That's emotion. When you reveal emotion, you get men's attention. Now, if you were saying, I was scared that you're late, and so I was scared, that's not a good thing to talk about, because he's going to get defensive. So you have to talk about problems, at least in the beginning, to become excellent communicators. You talk about other things that he's not the problem. Because when you make a man the problem, he can't be the solution. It's just right. you take away his power. Because anytime, when a woman complains, it just knocks a man's testosterone down. And then when she complains again and again, that's called nagging, it pushes it down even further. And when a woman is, quote, nagging, it's always because she doesn't know how to ask a man in the way that works. So there's a whole science to learning how to ask. Why didn't people figure this out before? Because never in the past, women didn't need to ask. They already knew, I'm only going to marry a guy who can make a certain amount of money and has a certain amount of gentleman qualities. And if a man can do that, a woman was happy. See, all men want is a happy wife. And we only get defensive when our wives aren't happy. But when I become the source of her unhappiness, it's hard for a man to hear. But it's easy for a woman to raise her estrogen talking about other things. And then when her estrogen up and she's able to feel love and happiness inside, then she's able to ask for more and a man will respond. But if you're unhappy and you ask for more, it's just going to be complaining. It's an art. It's all doable if we understand this gender intelligence is so important now. Culture always provided a setting. It wasn't always ideal because it was corrupt. Governments and rulers and whatever. When a man cannot make enough money to provide for his wife, he will become dysfunctional. When a man's dependent on the government rather than himself, he is dysfunctional. Mm-hmm. And this just lowers his testosterone. And then when a woman becomes dependent on the government for her being, then suddenly she's not depending on a man. That dramatically lowers her estrogen for personal relationships.
Fascinating.
And then when she has low estrogen, then she craves eating food. So then she overeats. She has comfort food. And that comfort food puts belly fat on. And when you have the belly fat, it's a form of numbing. And you said this beautiful thing, but what about men? And I said, they're all really numb. But as soon as my wife says, see, a woman doesn't say, do you love me? Because a man will say, of course I love you. He'll take it as an insult. But when a man understands that if you want to bring back the feelings you had in the beginning, you have to have those feelings you had in the beginning. And it's the woman that wakes up a man's feelings. It's through women that we touch into our feelings. Is that we depend on feelings to open our hearts. That's what sex is so important to men. If a man gets divorced, he's having sex within months. He'll get married within 3 years, statistically. And a woman goes, how could he do that? She might give it up even, or on average, women take 9 years to get married again, if they get married again. They just don't have that juice that they used to have, which is wanting to depend on a man. But when you're making plenty of estrogen, huge amounts of estrogen gets produced when you're able to feel the emotions, you're able to go to a man and share them and feel heard. And that's that vulnerability, that one little hack. It's one of my favorite ones, which is, it's like the man understands we're doing a thing here. She's going to say, do you think I'm still beautiful? He's not going to say, well, you could lose a few pounds. No, she could say, even though I've gained weight, do you still love me? He'll say, yes, I love you so much. And are you happy married to? Are you glad? Are you angry with me about the thing yesterday? No, I'm not angry with you. And if you ask him after like several of the positive ones, and then you bring up, are you holding anything against me about that upset? His heart is so open. It's women that open men's hearts. And then when a man's heart is open, a woman can go to these higher levels of romantic feelings. So many women don't have climaxes. They don't have orgasms. And the orgasm happens when a woman's estrogen levels double. Now, after menopause, she's not going to have those high estrogen levels. But if she has normal estrogen levels for a woman in menopause, if that doubles, then she will have orgasm. And I have lots of clients in their 70s where women are multi-orgasmic. That's another book I have, which is called Mars, Venus in the Bedroom. So you've got, and then you have the women who are divorced, who are still holding on to resentment. This book will help them realize they were a part of the problem. They didn't really realize it. But then there's also wounds that we have that once couples go downhill, they start hurting each other. Those wounds, I have a book called Mars and Venus Starting Over, which is, how to start healing the wounds so you can move ahead. Because if you don't heal what's inside, you'll tend to repeat the same things.
Oh my goodness. I'm honoring your time and aware of time, but I feel like I could sit and listen and ask an occasional question. Of course, there's a part of me wondering, for those of us that are parents, how do we raise healthy females and males early on? And
I have so much to say about that. And even just to give people a hint, if you've got young children up to 10 years old, there's a whole nother way of parenting. Now, I have a book called Children from Heaven. It's really, really good. My daughter, Lauren, she has her little child now, and she's, created all these courses for women at my website. Understanding Men is one of the best ones. But she'll be, in the future, be writing her own experience of having read and followed this particular book I'm going to recommend. It's called Hunt, Gather, Parent. Hunt, Gather, Parent. Unbelievable. How happy and joyful and cooperative and participating. I mean, she's got a 1.5-year-old who picks up her husband's socks and puts them in the bin. This is a whole nother way from the hunter-gatherer era of how people would raise their children. They didn't have child-centered activities. Things weren't for the children. It was always the family, and the children always participate in the family. And you never try to steal the child's attention. Like, look here, do this, do this. If people do this all the time. Because if you demand attention of children, they'll be demanding of you. The most non-demanding child, and she's very independent, but also responsible to the family. When she needs love, she just puts up her hands with joy and comes to you, wants to participate, sometimes wants to explore. It's so many things we've missed out on our modern society, and never does that child get to experience a screen. Okay, you cannot let a child. It's a massive dopamine overload for them.
Oh my gosh, take the screens out of the bedrooms. Take the TVs out of the bedroom.
Well, that was even my wife would never let a TV be in our bedroom. Not just for the children, just for the intimacy. It should be a room where you don't have external stimulation, and all the toys, get rid of them and start finding that your partner becomes the source of your arousal and turning on. And we have the skills to do that. See, it's like as soon as you depend on something else, if I'm depending on something else, I'm not depending on my wife to stimulate me. So she's not feeling needed and supported in that way.
I'm so grateful. Are you on social media, website? If someone was wanting, outside of your books, if someone's wanting to lean in, follow you, do you have a YouTube channel, your own podcast, any of that?
Oh, I'm on lots of podcasts. I'll be on your podcast. I'm at marsvenus.com, marsvenus.com. And I'm all over. I'm always taking things off I used to have 600 just videos just of me talking without even interviewed. It was just too much. I like to keep it to, I don't want to be overexposed. I want plenty of it out there. It is out there. Otherwise, nobody comes to my website, which is better stuff at my website, which is marsvenus.com. And that's where we have the classes where there's interactive processes, and there's frequently asked questions. There's yes, but. It's not just dependent on the interviewer. They're well thought out. So that's available at marsvenus.com. I have something, if people go to soulsearch.io, I do 6-week classes online with question and answers with people with their challenges and so forth. So I'm all over the place, but marsvenus.com is the best place to find. And there's one supplement I still recommend for everybody if you have any ups and downs. And that is too much, not enough time to explain it, but nobody else sells it. It's all the ones I do. So many people do a good job selling supplements and everything, but this is one. It's right at the top of my website. It's called Elemental Orotates. Elemental Orotates. Nobody has understood it, but it's right there. I explain it, and it's amazing to stabilize mood for adults and for children.
I'm so appreciative of your time. Thank you. Thank you for the service you've provided in the world for decades. And I look forward to more. To everyone listening in the podcast, those links will all be in the show notes.
And there's nothing at my website on how to lose weight. I just don't overwhelm people. But if you want to ask me questions on that, you go to the bottom of the page. It's just contact us and say you're interested, and then you'll get a call. Somebody can explain it to you.
Great. Are you doing any in-person workshops, or is it
I
predominantly
just
all
finished
online?
one this weekend. In Marin County, I do in America. Most of them are right here, 5 minutes from my home in
Okay.
Marin County, over the Golden Gate Bridge. They're 3-day workshops, all day Friday, all day Saturday, and evening Saturday evening, and then half a day Sunday, so people can fly back to the East Coast.
Spectacular. Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
You're welcome.